My name is Marlon,
And I'm Vanessa.
and welcome to my podcast. This is a special episode. I'm turning 40 in a few days, and back in December, put out an option for you to send
poll.
a poll, so that you could send me questions anonymously. So these are all the questions that I got. I'm answering them in the order that they came in, and I invited Vanessa to join me, my wife.
I get to be the special guest.
You do, and you get to ask me the questions that you guys, my friends and others who follow me either through the podcast, the blog, social media. I think primarily most of them came in through Instagram. But thank you for the questions. We're going to go over those together. I have them in front of me along with some notes. I looked over these ahead of time so I could have some idea of what to say. And thank you, Vanessa, for taking the time to help me with this.
You're welcome. I just want to say how impressed I am at these questions and how thoughtful they were. So if you sent some questions, thank you so much. These are very, very nice, very thoughtful. So I'm looking forward to hearing all the answers here too.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. Let's dive right in.
All right, here's question number 1. What purchase of $100 or less has most positively impacted your life in the last 6 months or in recent memory?
Yeah, so this, at first, the things that I thought about were over $100. Like, this is going to be hard. But then I thought about it some more. And there are things under $100 that have had a positive impact in my life. And one of them is just journals in general. I remember
so this is like under $10.
Yes. Well, the nice leather one you gave me, the Traveler's Journal, that one I think was a little bit more, and it has different inserts. So I've already bought refills and changed them out. And recently, this Christmas, you gave me a new one, a new journal, not the leather one, a different kind. But I do like those. I have several. I collect them. I carry them around. I write notes. I write thoughts. I write questions. And just recently, I finished one that was given to me in Texas. This was a Write in the Rain. It's just a little one, and
So it has special paper that
is water resistant and came with a pen that's also
that would have
has
come
special ink.
Did you bring it to our backpacking trip last year? Because that would have come in handy.
Right? I should have. Did not bring it with me, but I just recently.
For those days you want to ride in the rain.
When it's raining and you just want to write how much you're enjoying backpacking in the rain. I just finished that one, and it went back all the way to when we lived in Texas. So it might be 10 years. I'm not sure if our son was born or not at the time. But I really enjoyed looking back and reading through those because I could see how I've changed, how I've matured in some areas, and also how I've remained the same. So certain aspects of what I wrote and what I thought was meaningful, or the prayer request, or different things like that, have been consistent. It's just part of who I am. And then some things have changed. So it's, there's been growth. There's been a maturing process, hopefully. So it's nice to
be
read
determined.
back. Yeah. So for me, journals, just paper and pen, and also having a nice pen helps. I like writing with fountain pens. They are a ton of work, but they make the writing process fun. So I would say the journals, the fountain pens, and then the last one more thing that's under $100 is a pair of Bluetooth headphones. So this is before the iPods or AirPods or whatever you call them. The true wireless, right? These had a wire between them, and they went behind the ear, and I got them.
But
they
just weren't connected to the phone.
That's right. So they were Bluetooth, and that allowed me more freedom. I kept getting my hand tangled in the wire. So I can be exercising, I can be doing laundry, I can be cleaning up around the house or doing something, and listening to podcasts or audiobooks. And I really enjoy that. I enjoy podcasts and audiobooks. It allows me to experience and learn from a wide range of experiences and authors and leaders. And I really enjoy that. And the Bluetooth headphones have really helped. I might need to upgrade soon because the batteries are getting worse and worse over the years. They're old now. But it wasn't very expensive. It was just enough that I could hear. And I think you combine all of the notebooks and the Bluetooth, and it would still be under $100. And those have had a positive impact in my life.
All right.
Thank you for the question.
So here's question number 2. How has a failure or apparent failure set you up for later success? Do you have a favorite failure?
This is a hard one. Failures are difficult. I have a lot of things that have not worked the way I wanted them to. Doesn't mean that they were a failure, but there was one that I considered.
So how do you define a failure then?
Yeah, well, there's one that came to mind that I strongly consider a failure. It felt like a failure at the time, and it took me a long time to get over it. And this was when I was in college. So I was a freshman studying theology. And you know me from back then, from high school. I was pretty arrogant, I think, when I think about myself.
We knew it all when we were in high school.
Oh, yeah. I've never known as much as I did as a senior in high school. And I went to college, and I was taking a full load. Plus, I'm interested in everything, and you know this. I get easily excited about different things. I want all the hobbies. I want all the sports and all the experiences and all the books and all the topics. Doesn't mean I follow through in everything, but I find that all very interesting. Like for a while, I was interested in World Rally Race. Anyway, so I took 16 credits. From 12 to 16 credits was the same amount. So every semester I was taking either 15 or 16, depending on if it was 3 credits or 2 credits and things like that. So I had a full load. Plus I worked with the service department, which was 2 hours per day, not counting the weekends. And then...
But it's still like a part-time schedule.
Yeah. And then I also joined the orchestra, which was symphony orchestra and string orchestra. So it means there was rehearsal every day at 5, it used to be, right around dinner time. I remember rushing to dinner, being first in line to grab my food to go, rushing back to orchestra to make it for the rehearsal because it was right during the dinner time. And then I had choir, which was during lunchtime. And I joined the big university chorale and the cantori, which was the touring choir. And I joined the Meister Singers, which was just the men's group. And those were not for credit. So if I had taken those for credit, it would have put me at 21 credit hours. And eventually there was some sort of scholarship thing where I had those credit hours, but I didn't have to pay for them. So there's no exams.
So anything above 16 would be...
You have to pay extra.
Okay.
But there was a thing, because they wanted people in the music program, I could take those and not have to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
So I still had the rehearsals. I still had the performances. Most weekends, I was gone with one of the groups doing music. And of course, it took time away from studying, from other things. But I don't regret it. I had a lot of fun. A lot of my memories come from the music
I'm waiting for
program.
the failure to come up.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. It's going to be a long episode. So what happened was, for my Hebrew class, because I'm doing all this extra stuff, and also I came from public high school, so I had a lot of Sabbath conflicts. So there's a lot of things I couldn't do. I would join the soccer team, but then a lot of the tournaments were like Friday night or Saturday, so I couldn't go. Same thing with swim team, same thing with the choir, there's always these conflicts. So when I got to college and going to an Adventist university, suddenly I could be a part of everything. So I was really enjoying that. But what happened was my grades suffered. And I believe it was a C+ for my midterms or something in Hebrew, or was a B-. It was something. And my GPA dropped below a certain point. And that cost me, I think it was like $4,000 scholarship.
Ouch.
And that was awful. And I was so proud of how smart I was and how I could do all these things. And then here I am, getting a low grade. And it was a tough class. But I just felt so bad because I felt like I had failed my dad. And he's struggling to pay for my school so that I don't have to go into debt. And then having to tell my dad that I lost my scholarship. And I remember my dad told me to drop out of choir and orchestra and different things and focus on my studies, which I did for a little bit. But I realized my grades weren't getting better. I was studying as much as I was going to, and I missed the music. And it also helped me regulate emotionally, so I joined everything back. I did slow down a little bit later. I left Econtori, which was more demanding. But that was really...
And Econtori was a vocal group.
Yes, that was the singing group that went on tours, and so they did a lot more singing, more challenging pieces. And so I dropped out of that. Also orchestra, we were going to go to Europe, so I wanted to do that. And then I joined the choir again when we went to Florida. Anyway, but
so the failure
was losing that scholarship. And how humbling that was for me, and the realization that it was going to take a miracle for me to graduate and to be able to graduate debt free. And just of the sacrifice of my parents, I really appreciate them for that. So I did not bring myself up by my own effort and hard work. And God had to come in incredible ways through scholarships and different things. And of course, my parents. So it was really humbling for me and it set me up in ministry.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. How did that failure set you up for later success? Is the second part of the
So
question.
yes, so it reminded me that I have to depend on God completely for everything, for the funding, for the grades, for I was trying to do it on my own, and I realized I wasn't going to be able to do it. And my grades got better. I continued to be involved in music and in all those things.
It helped you get
I turned to
humble
God
you
more.
up a little bit.
It humbled me a little bit, yes. So I did not have, I don't know if I had a single semester in college where I got straight A's. I might have, I don't remember. I got better grades in graduate school, but I realized that the grades weren't everything, especially in my line in theology.
Unless
People don't
it
care
had
for
to do with your scholarship.
scholarship. That was the thing. But I've never had anybody ask me what my GPA was. I mean, it wasn't bad. It's just I lost that scholarship. But it helped me realize that there was more to my college experience than just my GPA. And I feel like the music and the relationships and the extracurricular things I did added enough value to my life that it was okay to get the occasional B or C plus.
Ouch.
Yeah, humbling, lowered grades.
But
than I
it's
got in high
okay.
school.
It's okay. We're learning. We're all learning.
And it helped me be more gracious with others, because that's also something that I struggled with. I figured if I can do it, anybody should be able to do it. And I don't ask you for help, and you never ask me for help. And that's terrible going into ministry. That's just a horrible way of looking at life. But that was me in high school, and God was working in me. And so that was the failure, and that's the one that sticks because it was really humbling.
Would you say that was your favorite failure?
Yes, because it kept me humble, and there's been more humbling experiences, but that was the beginning of it.
All right. So question number 3. In the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit had most improved your life? So last 5 years, new belief, behavior, or habit that most improved your life.
Yeah, I have a hard time with time, so I'm not sure if it's 5 years. I think it would be around that. But it's...
Yes, baby, you live outside of time.
Yeah, I'm timeless. So I think it's been drinking water first thing in the morning while fasting. So it got to the point, I have it with me. I drink this thing every morning right when I wake up. The whole thing.
And how would you say that's most improved your life?
Here's how it's most improved my life. It's not just the water. It has helped me wake up in a better mood. It flushes out my system. It helps with my circulation, my brain activity. Your brain's mostly water.
Right, but do you feel any different when you get up and you don't have water?
I do. I think I've gotten used to it now. But not only that, for me, it's a reminder that my health is important. So when I do that, I'm more likely also to be mindful of how much am I sitting down? Am I getting enough steps? Am I walking enough? Am I doing some mobility exercises? Am I lifting weights? Am I moving? Am I being mindful of my health, especially physically?
So it's not necessarily the water per se, but more of it stands for sticking to health goals or health.
Yes. So that water is the first step in the right direction in the beginning of the day. And it reminds me. So for me, it's the water, movement, getting enough sleep, and eating healthy. So for me, drinking that water in the morning, because it's hard, it's a big water bottle. It takes some effort to drink it. And it's that reminder, no, this is important. And also a reminder, I need bathrooms for the first couple of hours of the day. I need to have access to a bathroom fairly close by. But that's a new thing, I think, within the last 5 years or so. And I've been getting better at it. I didn't start with that bottle. I started with maybe a glass, and then there was a smaller bottle, and then now I have that one. And it sets me up for success physically, and it helps me wake up.
So just throughout the day, how many times do you refill that bottle? So
that's a good question.
You take one in the morning, and then what?
And then I do horribly the rest of the day.
So it's a good thing you take that whole bottle in the morning.
Yes, and here in Idaho, it's even drier. So in Georgia, I didn't feel it as much. And also in Georgia, we were working out together, so I was sure to drink because of that. Here, not so much. So when I exercise, I drink more. But if I'm not, I drink less. But I try to have it with me in the office.
Well, it's cold and you don't feel as thirsty, even though you do get dehydrated. Because just right now, my lips are super dry.
Yeah, so I try to, I may drink two. I fill it a third time at night.
But you
But
don't drink it
no,
overnight. Yeah.
no, I don't. In the morning, usually it's full, and I drink the whole thing. And even if I drink at night, just before I go to bed, I go and fill it up again, whatever is left, so that I have the whole thing in the morning. So I try to drink throughout the day. I'm getting better at that part, but the morning one is for sure every morning.
Good. So it's not like you're drowning in water. You're trying to balance it out, but taking a whole bunch of it in the morning.
Yes. So the idea is I want to sip it throughout the day and not wait to be thirsty to drink.
All right. Next question. What are bad recommendations you hear in your profession or your area of expertise? Bad recommendations.
This is a really tough one. I've been thinking about this. I didn't write anything down for this one because I couldn't think of it. Because I'm afraid of saying things and offending people who might be listening to this. Bad recommendations. There's certain things that people will say, maybe with the best of intentions, and
But I think that's in every field, really.
yeah. So here's an example.
It doesn't necessarily mean that they intended it to harm you or to harm what you do. It's just
Comes out
in
wrong.
their best intentions to help. It just
Yeah. So one of them that bugs me. I'll see this on social media, and people will say it sometimes. In so my area. So I'm a church pastor. So speaking as far as like spirituality, God, theology, Bible, people will say something like, "Oh, you are exactly where God wants you to be right now." Like, well, are you really? Are you sure? Have you made all the right choices that God wanted you to make, and they got you to this place? Or are you in a situation as a result of poor choices, sometimes rebellious choices, and God can use you exactly where you are? So that's what I try to say. God can use you exactly where you are. He can take you from here and bring some good out of this situation. But I do not like telling people that God wants you in this situation. This is where God wants you. You're
I feel
exactly
like
where
that
God wants you to be.
That applies to a lot of things. I mean, you hear a lot of that. Oh, it was God's plan for this, or
Yeah, so I'm really careful with that language because I know that God is a loving God and is a mighty God, and He also respects my freedom. And a lot of times He guides me and He nudges me and He shows me, and then I still choose the wrong thing. So I can't then blame God for being where I am. No, I praise God for His mercy that even where I am, He works with me. But so that's a bit of advice that I think it's poor advice. Or something else that I've heard people say is they're doing something that the Bible is against. And when I question them on it or they bring it up, I'm like, are you sure? Like, they're like, oh, no, I talked with God and we're good. I don't think
He
that's how
let
it
this
works.
one
Yeah.
pass.
Like nobody else can, but He gave me a pass on this. I'm like, I don't know. So those are a couple of things that I've run into a few times.
And I think also remembering that, I mean, we live in this world where sin reigns, and sometimes it's our choices and sometimes it's other people's choices. We're all connected, and things are bound to be messy and are bound to fall apart and, to not work out. But it doesn't mean that God is behind the scenes pulling things down. But I do see Him behind the scenes working with the situations that we put ourselves in and trying to bring the best out of it. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, and I agree with that completely. And I believe that God can work with us in any situation and that there's no reason to despair, right? There's always hope in God. I'm just careful to say you're exactly where God wants you to be. Like, God can use you exactly where you are. I like that better.
I like that too.
So it's not like horrible advice. I just think it's inaccurate. Maybe I'm nitpicking, but yeah.
All right, here's the next. When you feel overwhelmed or unfocused or have lost your focus temporarily, what do you do?
Well, that happens quite a bit, especially if I'm working with a sermon and I get stuck.
Well, it's hard to focus for that long. I mean, you sit sometimes if you're working on a sermon for hours. So, I mean, it's hard to focus on any one thing for hours.
And then it gets to the point where just trying to push through, it's not going to work. So what I do is I try to switch mental work and I'll switch gears to physical work. So either I'll go down to the garage and exercise a little bit
If you're home.
if I'm home. If I'm in the church office, sometimes I'll take the opportunity to make some phone calls. I have people that have called me, asked me to reach out when
Just
they get a
change the
chance.
nature of the work.
Change the nature of the work. And the good thing is when I'm on the phone, I try to walk, get my steps in. So usually if I'm working, at least now there's a stand-up desk in my church office, so I can stand up while I'm working. But if I'm sitting down, which happens to be a lot of times, sitting down, working, reading, taking notes, putting thoughts together, I'll get up and I'll start catching up with my phone calls, or I'll switch and I'll go reply to emails. But I try to do something physical: walk, go get a drink, go get some fresh air, and then come back to it later, or even take a little nap. I can do power naps. I can take like a 5-minute, 10-minute nap, and then I'm good to go. Sometimes that's what I need if I'm falling asleep. Instead of just fighting through it, I'll try fresh air. I'll try moving. If I'm still sleepy, I'll set an alarm for 15 minutes. I'll lay down on the floor, close my eyes.
I
and then
admire
get up.
your ability to take short naps like that.
Oh yeah, and then I'm good to go. So that's something that I do. Usually I try to switch gears. So if I'm doing mental work, I'm gonna try to do something physical, fresh air, drink water, walk, and then come back to it after a while, or a nap.
All right. So here's the next one. You were hesitant to have kids. How do you feel now? I mean, this must have been somebody who knew you a long time ago.
Yeah.
Did being a father come naturally, or did you have to put in work? What's the biggest blessing your kids have brought? It's a lot of questions. Your kids have brought so far.
Yeah, so good thing I have this in front of me so I can try to answer each
So
part.
you were hesitant to have kids. How do you feel now? That's the first part.
I feel good. Good next. No. Children, it's one of those things. It's not easy, but I think it's worthwhile. And I am happy that we have kids. It would be awful to say that I'm not. No, but I am happy. They've added another level to life and to things that experiences. So the way that I try to describe it is, let's say this
Too
is
late.
yeah, let's say this is the range of your emotions, right? Like this is your lowest day and this is your highest day.
Okay, but for the people who are listening, you have to explain.
Yes.
There's like a couple of hand breaths in between that.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. It's 10 inches, 6 inches. I don't know, whatever this is. So, but when you have kids, like your scariest moments are going to be a lot scarier. But
So
also your joyful moments will be...
that range.
You widen that range, so you're going to experience more joy and you're going to experience more despair. You're going to experience greater
More
fear,
fear, yeah.
and you're going to experience just incredible joy. And it's just you begin to live more deeply. At least that's how it was for me on that question.
So did being a father come naturally, or did you have to put in the work?
So that's a really interesting one. I'm not one to hold babies. I'm never going to ask someone if I can hold their baby. It's just, I'm afraid I'm going to hurt the baby, hold the baby wrong, or do something. So I was afraid, right? Well, I'm going to have kids and I don't enjoy holding babies. How's that?
Don't enjoy and don't know how are two different.
The few times I've had to hold a baby, it felt super awkward. And it was usually like somebody's doing something like, here, can you hold this baby for a second? Or like tie my shoes or something. I'm like, So that's been...
More like in the scary, not like...
Yeah, not that I don't like babies. Like, I'm afraid I'm going to do something wrong, hurt the baby, hold the baby wrong, drop the baby. Terrifying. But it was very different when my kids were born. I really enjoyed holding them. And I think that came naturally. But there's definitely
it came with
a
the
learning.
Package, right?
It came with the package. Like, I loved holding my kids. I still do it to this day. It's a little bit harder to carry them. But... It gives me, I desire it, I enjoy it, I look forward to it, and I was afraid that wasn't going to happen as a father, so that came naturally. But I do definitely put work into it. I like reading about how to be a better father. And I do put effort into it. I'm always talking with my kids. Now they're old enough that we can have conversations. How can I help you? And I'm trying to help you. And so I'm learning also. I had to put effort, but especially with the baby part, a lot of it came naturally. And then you and my mom and your mom, my sister, your sister were helping me. Like, this is how you care for a baby, and I enjoyed learning it. I didn't dread it or not enjoy it. Even the changing the diapers and
Yeah, I was
everything.
going to say you were very involved. Yeah,
I was, and I enjoyed it. And we pass those phases, and I'm good. Like, I don't miss it.
Are you
But
still scared of carrying? I mean, you pick up babies all the time when you have to do dedications and stuff. Is that still is that still scary to you?
I have some experience now, so it's a little bit easier.
Okay.
But I still get a little bit
As you
anxious. Like,
dedicate
don't drop the
babies
baby.
by what do you call it? The hands,
Laying on of
by the
hands.
laying on of hands.
No, that was before I had my own kids. Now I pick up babies.
Okay.
Is there any more to that question?
No, I think that was all of the parts. What's the biggest blessing your kids have brought so far? I think that's the last part of the
Okay.
question.
So being a father is a new identity. And with that identity comes the weight of that responsibility, right? I am a father. My children will follow in my footsteps. They're looking at me as an example. And that weight has helped me be a better version of myself. So I think that's a blessing. I think I am a better human being. I'm a better person because I have children that look up to me and imitate me. So as a church pastor, already had some of that weight, but with children, it's in the house too, not just out in public.
Kind of changes the
So-
focus too, right? From self to others. And
Oh yeah, you stop planning around your schedule. You're planning around the children's schedule. Even recording this has been a challenge. So today's a snow day. The kids are around the house being very quiet and awesome while we're recording this. But yeah, everything now becomes about the kids. When we plan our vacations, when we plan our budget, when we plan our time, they are the top priority.
Next question then. What do you feel is your greatest achievement?
So this is an interesting one.
Greatest
My
achievement.
greatest achievement, I would say, my relationships. Starting with you, you're my greatest achievement. I don't think of you as an achievement, but the fact that I have you in my
Trophy
life,
wife.
the fact that I have you in my life brings me much joy. So you, the kids, my friends, I have a lot of, how can I say a lot? I have quality friends. I have people from Texas, from Georgia, from Idaho, from Tennessee, from, different
Michigan.
places where I live, Michigan, that, now are living in other places. Like, I have friends in other continents and other countries, and good friends. And for me, that's my biggest achievement. That's what I am most proud of. I don't know if proud is the right word, but
Just
I
happy
value
with.
that. I'm happy with that. I'm happy that I have that. So my achievements are not so much, it wouldn't be financial, not in my line of work, but it not even, I'm not someone that builds things with my hands, or I wish I did. Maybe one day I'll get into that, but it's relationships. I feel like everywhere we had the privilege of living and working, we have had good friends and healthy relationships. And I treasure those, and I value those, and I still try to keep up with those and connect with people as I am
Definitely a
able.
blessing.
Yeah, so I think that's my greatest achievement.
All right. I forget which number question this is, but we have 4 more to go. So when you look back on your life, is there anything you would do differently?
Did you skip one?
Oh, I
conflict?
did.
Yeah, sorry, I keep checking them and it changes them.
Okay, so here we go. Do you ever have conflict in your life? If so, how do you handle it?
So
Do you ever have conflict in your life?
I do. You'd be surprised when you're pastoring a church how much conflict comes with that, or just dealing with conflict. Just this morning, I spent a good chunk of time on the phone with dealing with the aftermath of a conflict that I feel now in hindsight I didn't handle it as well as I could have. So I'm still learning how to deal with it. I believe that the best way to handle conflict is clear communication. Just be transparent, and not in an aggressive way, not trying to hurt, not in a mean way, respectfully. Be transparent and open and honest, and it helps solve conflict. But sometimes I am not sensitive enough to the true nature of the conflict. I'm still gaining experience in that.
There are layers, right? Conflicts have layers.
Right, so somebody
it's
could-
what you see in the surface, and then there's all the stuff that sometimes brews underneath.
Somebody could be telling you something, but really it's something deeper. And I just haven't learned to listen to that well. Or things where I should have brought people together sooner to talk about it, but hoping to talk just with one and with the other and smooth things over. over time, it just got worse. Should have just brought them together in the first place. So I'm still learning. Conflict happens a lot, but not so much in like my relationship with you or with friends, not so much involved, like outside of church, which is hard to say, like, is that work or is that life? But outside of church-related conflicts, which sometimes are two different people, and I just have to help navigate
Like
that.
mediate.
I'm learning. I'm getting better, but I still have a ways to go, and I do ask others for help and wisdom and guidance in that. I have great elders and other pastors and people with experience that I love to turn to, so they can help me with that. But personally, not too much. And I think with the two of us, one of the keys to that is if I ever feel offended or hurt by you, I remind myself that that's not your desire. You didn't do this thing trying to hurt me. So that changes my approach when I talk with you. And of course, we've been together for so long now. Is it 15 years, 16 years of marriage?
Careful.
Just had our 16th anniversary.
Good job.
And 25 years of
This
dating.
is going to be 24 at the end of the year. So
24.
23.
Yeah,
Right
23. See, I don't do math. You do math. So it's easier dealing with you because of the level of trust and love. But with others, I'm still learning. But yes, there's definitely conflict that I have to deal with, especially when people perceive me to have certain thoughts or feelings that I don't necessarily have.
Or take sides.
Yeah, sometimes people assume that I have a certain view on something without even talking to me or before they talk to me. And that can lead to conflict. And then once we start talking, I was like, oh, you don't think? Like, no, I don't. And I wasn't talking about you. It was this other anyway. So things like that. Sometimes I'll mention something in a sermon. It's happened before. Somebody thought I was talking about them. It's like, I didn't even know that they were struggling with that thing. And they're like, oh, I thought like somebody had told you. Like, no, I didn't know. So yeah, sometimes people have these stories in their mind and they don't realize that I didn't have that story in my mind, you know.
Well, we all kind of see the world through our eyes depending on what's going on in our lives. And sometimes, we perceive things that they're about us when they're not necessarily about us. So it happens a lot with me.
Our perceptions are our reality. So
Yep.
it's good to check on those and make sure is that really the reality?
All right. Next, when you look back in your life, is there anything you would do differently? Anything you'd change?
This is another one that I didn't have a lot of answers for. I guess I have one thing here. And it ties in with something I mentioned earlier. If I look back, I would be more humble as a teenager, more generous with my time and with my effort, more patient. That's something that I feel like my friends and family suffered because of my arrogance or what do you say, like I thought I could do everything on my own. Self-sufficiency. I wanted to be self-sufficient. Now I'm completely comfortable saying I'm not. I need help, as much help as possible.
Well, that comes with maturity too. So
that's one thing. Other things I'd be very careful to change because how much of that shaped who I am now and how much do I want to change. So for example, one thing that I would have loved is not to have been long distance from you for all those years for college. We were long distance for about 4 years in our relationship. I wish that hadn't been so. But did those 4 years of long distance strengthen our marriage? Are we a better couple because of that?
I mean,
I don't
strengthen
know.
our relationship that then led to our marriage.
Communication skills and all of that. I would have loved to have married you earlier, but would it have been good to be married without a job? While going to I don't know. So as soon as I got a job, I asked you to marry me.
It's good to look at it in hindsight.
Yeah.
I don't know about at that time.
So that's the thing. So I had all these desires, that I think, oh man, like being married to you is so amazing. I wish I could have done that sooner. Or, but I don't know. I think also I wish I was never bad though. Like regarding
in your humble opinion.
Yeah, no, bad in this thing that I'm thinking in my head, like just taking care of my health. Like I feel like
see.
I've gotten more disciplined in that.
Well,
And
what
it's not that I
about-
was ever careless with my health, but man, I could have, like, there's things now at 40 that like it's just more painful. Injuries take longer to heal. You get hurt more easily. And now it's just like, man, if I had just Anyway,
So what about going back to that scholarship situation and maybe started off with fewer things on your plate?
I don't know.
You think you would
No,
change that? No?
because I like the experience of trying everything.
I see.
I really, and same thing in seminary.
So it was a worthwhile
It
failure.
was worthwhile. I don't say I wouldn't change it. I mean, I wish I hadn't lost, thousands of dollars in a scholarship. I wish I had a way of funding my education. But the experience, I did the same thing in graduate school. I was taking graduate courses, and I think 9 credit hours is full time for graduate school, and 12 is like, that's 9 to 12 is what it should be. And I was taking 16. I was like undergrad at the graduate level. But why? There were all these classes that I wanted to take, all these things that I thought were interesting. And I didn't have kids yet. So I was married. You were also going to school. So we didn't see each other anyway. Might as well study.
Well, we
and it
saw
was
each
Michigan.
other.
It was cold. There was nothing else to do. So hit the library, hit the books. So I don't mind it. I don't regret it. I wouldn't change it. I just wish I was more humble and more generous as a teenager, high school and college.
All right. Next. What advice would you give to a person having to decide between different paths in life and navigating big changes that would follow?
Yeah, so I hope whoever asked this hasn't had to make that decision since like December. Now it's January.
Well,
We're recording this.
I mean, there's so many ways of looking at this question. I mean, is this person still in school, deciding on what majors, or are they, deciding, have different job options, or is it marriage to this person or not? Or there's so many ways of looking at this. So
Yeah.
Curious to see how you're going to approach it.
So decide between 2 different paths in life, navigating big change that would follow. So I'll read what I wrote here. Do your homework. Journal, make lists, ask the opinion of people in those areas. So depending on the area, if it's marriage, if it's work, if it's a major. Talk with people who are knowledgeable in that area. Find information, gather information, write it down. That's how I work through things. That's why the journal is one of those purchases. Like, yes, this was worth it. Changed my life. I think and work through things by writing or by talking. Those two are similar. When I'm writing, it's very similar for me to talking, and I'm not always ready to talk about some of the things. So journaling helps, writing it out. Make lists. What are the pros? What are the cons? Why do you want this? Why would you want this other thing? Because there's so much more to life than, like I was saying, the GPA, or there is more than how much you're going to make. There's more to life than these numbers. It's so broad. There's so much. So if it's marriage, if it's career, if it's a major, if it's a move, location. For example, moving to Idaho for us, it wasn't something that made a lot of sense financially, but I feel like it was the right move. And it was difficult to navigate that. It took a lot of prayer. It wasn't like, oh, clearly this is what I should do. But as different things fell into place, I felt like, okay, no, this is right. But there were challenges that came with it, but there were also blessings that came with it. So we just, I guess, a little over 2 years ago, made this decision. And it was a challenging one. So I can relate, I think, to a degree to this person, whatever they're dealing with. And that's what we did. Prayer, lists, talking with people who have experience, people who know you well. Ask them, what do you think I should do? And then ask people who are familiar with those areas.
And keep your ultimate goal in mind, right? Putting things in perspective.
What are your values? So choose the path that aligns with your values, not that would go against your values. That's what I would say. So it's good to be clear on your values. I'd start there and then bring it to prayer and talk with others, seek wisdom, collect knowledge and information, and then decide.
All right. So we have 2 more questions. So here is the second to last one. How did you know you were meant to be in ministry? Did you ever think about switching to something else? So 2 parts to that one question.
Okay.
How did you know you were meant to be in ministry?
That's a good question. It wasn't one event, something that happened, like the flipping of a light switch. Like, I'm supposed to be in ministry. It was a gradual thing. So my dad's a pastor, and we met at church. We've been involved in church growing up. And as I was involved in my local church members would come up to me and say things along the lines of, hey, you did a good job with that. Maybe you should consider ministry. And, eventually those things, they made an impression in me as people were sharing with me, encouraging me. It was something that I enjoyed, and apparently I was pretty good at it. It was something that I should pursue. And
It
so,
just goes to say the impact that older people have in a young person's decisions later in life, and the affirmation they receive, especially in this world where we hear about it all the time, a shortage of pastors or kids going into ministry.
yeah, it was definitely the local church experience that did it for me. And it wasn't like I always wanted to be a pastor since I was a little kid. No, I wanted to be other things, but it wasn't like a childhood dream. But it was later on in high school that I began to feel like this might be something that I want to do with my life. And also seeing my dad do it, I was aware that this was meaningful. He was helping people. Lives were being transformed. The community was becoming healthier and better. People's lives that were falling apart were coming back together. Now they're enjoying more. Marriages are I was like, man, this is meaningful stuff. Like this whole gospel thing, this is powerful. So it felt like it was a worthwhile thing for me to do. Not only did I believe in it, not only did I see the meaning of it, I was affirmed that, hey, you might be good at this, right? You might have some of the skill sets that would help you succeed in this area. So, because we all do ministry in some way, but this was specifically people saying that, pastoral ministry.
Yeah, and it's kind of different because you don't hear a lot of pastors' kids going into pastoring too, because you see a lot growing up there. But
that's a great point. It's like people say, you see how the sausage is made. I don't eat sausage, but apparently if you see how it's made, you don't want to eat it anymore. But yeah, I've seen, I've heard stories, my dad, my grandfather, it's, the ugly side of things. I went into ministry, you could say, wide-eyed, or as much as I could have been without actually being in it myself. So yeah, I still decided to do it, even though I knew it wasn't going to be all perfect and beautiful.
We pretty much grew up our teen years together and seeing you very involved. Did any of that ever feel like a chore to you? Like you were doing it as a chore?
No, I did feel a sense of responsibility, but I enjoyed it. Once again, it was a challenge. It was fun. It was meaningful work. And I got to do it alongside people that I enjoyed, like you and other friends that we have growing up. Family.
For me, it was the same way. It was like the joy of doing something, the joy of helping in some way, of being productive in a way that made a difference to other people.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that's what it was. So that's what made me. And then also as I went to college, I had opportunities. So my freshman year, that summer, so when I finished my freshman year, I went canvassing or co-portering or going door to door selling Christian books to help pay for my Christian education, so college. And we were staying at this one church, and I think it was in Ohio. It was a small church, and I didn't really know the pastor, but he was going to be gone. He needed someone to preach. He asked our canvassing director, our group leader, and he's like, oh, there's Marlon. He's a theology major. I was a freshman. When you're a freshman, I don't think you should have majors. You're just a freshman, right? I had taken Hebrew 1, Hebrew 2, and exegesis. And exegesis, the class about studying, interpreting the Bible. I had not taken any preaching classes yet at Southern, at least back in the day. It's probably still like that now. You could only take preaching after you took the languages and after you took exegesis. So the idea is first you learn how to read the Bible and interpret it properly, then you begin preaching. And that was their mindset. I'm not saying everybody has to know Hebrew before they start preaching. But so I hadn't taken preaching classes yet, and it was not a great sermon. I still have it written down by hand in our memory box, and I was looking at it the other day when we were moving. I found it. And it's like, man, it was God's mercy. And that way throughout college, there was always something that would encourage me to stay in ministry, and maybe ministry is the path that I should go. And there would be challenges, and as by God's grace, we would get a chance to overcome that challenge. That also became an encouragement to keep going in that direction. So it's not the flip of a switch. It wasn't like, oh, clearly this is, I had a dream and then this is it. No, it was an ongoing thing, and it grew and it blossomed and it matured as I moved in that direction. And even in ministry, there's always, despite the challenges, there's always something that would encourage me, like, yes, I should keep going. And once again, feedback from church members, it matters a lot. And that sort of keeps me going, keeps me motivated, even when I face challenging times.
Yeah, and I watch you from from here, from right next to you, and I see that you enjoy it. I see that you do what you like. This is not something that you do because there's nothing else to do, but you do it because you enjoy it. So
and
I see the sparkle in your eye.
Yeah,
Not every day is easy, but for the most part, I see.
And I love that I get to be creative. I get to try new things. I get to work with people, amazing people. Every church I've worked with, I get to work with amazing volunteers. And it's made me a better person. Working with these great elders and local leaders and deacons and just
different cultures and people across the lifespan.
And people who are so selfless and they just want to serve and they want to help and they'll come together and they volunteer their time. I work with 100% volunteers. It's incredible. I mean, here at Cloverdale, because it's a larger church, we have 2 people who are part-time. The church administrative assistant, who is an amazing person. She does phenomenal work, and I think she gets paid like part-time, nowhere near much the amount of work that she does. And she's such a blessing. Then our treasurer in the same way too, a great blessing, just amazing man, and gets paid at maybe part-time, and I don't see them as working for me. They're volunteers, and we help them with a little bit of money, and it's all volunteers, and it's amazing the team that we have. And there's also, now I have an associate pastor, Pastor Jason, who's also amazing man to work with. So I have just a great team. And before that in Georgia, amazing people that I got to work with. And then back before that in Texas. So I feel like God has always surrounded me with just great people that have helped me grow and develop. And it's been a joy working with them. And when we face challenges, we face them together. So it's helped me grow and blossom. And I've got to try different things and be creative. And it's been fun. I do enjoy it.
All right, so the second part of the question is, did you ever think about switching to something else?
I have. There are difficult times in ministry. There are frustrations that happen. And every now and then I was like, I wonder if I was doing something else, if I would have these problems. And I probably wouldn't. I'd have different problems that I don't know about right now. So eventually I think about any career, any job, it's going to have its challenges. The question then for me is, I'm not going to find a job that doesn't have challenges. Which one is worth dealing with the challenges? And I find that ministry is worth it. It's challenging, yes, but it's worthwhile challenges. I'm being challenged as I'm trying to help people. I'm being challenged as I'm doing something I believe in. I'm being challenged as I'm trying something new. And doing those things motivate me. Something new, helping people, even facing a challenge. To solve a problem that needs solving. It's encouraging, and I don't do it by myself. I have a wonderful team. I get you as support also from home, and yes, the thought crosses my mind every now and then, but I've never given it serious thought. The moment I stop to think and to pray about it, I feel like, no, ministry is where I'm supposed to be. And for any pastors or people in ministry who might be listening to this, or just church, volunteers, here's something. I was sharing this with a group of pastors today, and it's come to me over time. I don't know if I read this somewhere, but I've polished it, I guess, over time. But the general idea is, it's exciting and it's comforting to know that I am busy, that I am making an effort, that I am doing what God has called me to do, and it's His will that I succeed for His honor and glory. So even as hard as it gets, this is still God's will. And if I wasn't convinced of that, I wouldn't be doing it. So I'm always asking, Lord, is this your will? Is this what you would have me do? Is this what we should be doing as a church? Is this what I should be doing as a leader? And I'm always having that conversation. And if the answer is yes, or if I feel like, no, I'm being faithful to the Bible, I'm being faithful, these are the needs, this is what we're called to do, this is how we use our resources, then I move forward. And I also have a team of elders, a team of leaders that I always turn to. Like, are we all on the same page? Like, do we all agree that this is important? And if they all say yes, then we move forward. So I don't expect it to be easy, and I don't think about quitting because it's hard. I want it to be worthwhile. And I think the times that I've thought about transitioning has been with bigger things, not just a local church. And it's complicated, but I never consider it seriously because I think like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
And you enjoy what you do.
I do. And not to say that it's easy, but I do
No.
enjoy it.
All right, last question. Is it possible to go into ministry and speak at church without having a degree in it? And if so, what steps would you recommend taking to start?
Great question.
So this is like somebody who's excited about their walk with God and they want to start helping out and speaking and helping at the local church level, I guess.
Yeah, so I would say find a church and get involved. See what are the needs, what are your gifts, what are you passionate about, and start getting involved. Get to know the pastor, get to know the elders. Let them know, hey, I am willing to speak if you ever need somebody. And then pray about it. Talk to God. Does God have a message for you? Do you have something that you've been studying in the Bible, you've been reading, and you're like, oh, this is so exciting. I want to share this with somebody. And I would say start small. Try children's story. Try maybe
Leading a
prayer
small
meeting,
group.
a small group. If your church does Vespers on Friday nights or something, a speaking opportunity that will allow you to get some experience, get better at it. And then, because there is an art to it, right? There's a science and there's an art. You want to study the Bible, you want to have the message, but you also want to work on how you deliver it and get better at it.
And present it in a way that people can understand and apply.
Understand, follow, apply, get excited about it, and you get better as you practice. But I would say get involved with the local church, earn the trust of your elders and the pastor. Let them know that you're here to help and your desire to do this. And as God uses you, He will open doors. If He wants you to speak, He will open the door. And as you prepare and you prayerfully offer your very best, you might get invitations to speak other times or in other places. So you don't have to have a degree. The degree does help. Actually, I know pastors here in the Idaho Conference that didn't start off with a degree. They started off just being involved in preaching and as an elder. And then eventually they decided, Bible worker. And then eventually they went to school and got their degree. So they came after the fact. So you don't have to have that ahead of time. I went the route of getting the degrees first, but it was just the route that I was on from early on. But it's not the only way. And it's not even necessarily the best way. There's lots of different ways. As God impresses in your heart, pray about it. He will open the doors. And I find also as you prepare yourself to present, God will give you the opportunity to present. As you're studying and as you're learning, God will give you people who will be encouraged by that. And if you're willing to share, the opportunities will show up. And then feel free to message me more directly, and we can talk about this in more detail if you like any more tips or advice, or if you just want to bounce ideas back and forth.
All right. This was probably like over an hour of questions and answers.
Time flies by when you're having fun. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for agreeing to this.
You're
I know.
welcome. My hands are here like sweaty because speaking like this is not my my forte.
Yeah, but thank you for doing it. I think you did a great job. And thank you so much for the questions. And if you have any other questions, leave them in the comments and we'll continue this conversation. I'm excited to be turning 40. I'm excited to what God has ahead. Yeah. And yeah, thank you for joining me for this. May God bless you. Until next time.
Bye.